It says, an old man standing in the middle of the field throws up a deerskin ball. The players then run to try to catch the ball in their rackets. It is fun to watch them play naked, painted with all kinds of colors and with a wildcat's tail tied behind them. So they're basically playing a contact sport naked. Doesn't that sound like, what's this? Naked basketball? Y'all heard about the naked basketball with Diddy and Jamie Foxx. These elites, they know about this history. What's going on? I'm AnokhiTheOne, back with another video, and in this video I will be making the connection between the Christian agenda, right, and the Roman Catholic Church and the indigenous peoples of America, and specifically the Choctaw, where my people are from. I did the research. I have the paper trail, the paper records, and everything that my ancestors guided me to. And on my my paternal side, so my mother's paternal side, very much Choctaw. My grandpa was 100% Choctaw is what I found, because both of his grandfathers were 100% Choctaw, and I had the records of that. Then my mother's maternal side there's Cherokee, and I have to do more research to see all four sides. And then on my father's side, there is Choctaw on my father's maternal side, right? And his paternal side. But my father's paternal side, and where the name comes from, is very much Choctaw, but also very much Creole, very much French Canadian, and there's some English, there's all kinds of flavors, which is what Creole is, on my dad's paternal side, right? So just to break that down really quick. So I've been talking about I need to talk about it so much more, but I just be feeling so overwhelmed that I don't know where to start. And even just coming up to make this video, it took me a hot minute to figure out where to start. My ancestors was guiding me, because I'm like, okay, I don't even know where to begin today. But I'm gonna go from where I was with the origin of homosexuality in this book, and how it relates to the colonization and the Christianization, which is pretty much one and the same, of the indigenous people, the Choctaw. And if you don't know about the Choctaw Nation, they are one of the most powerful indigenous groups in America, one of the wealthiest. And they allied with the French in the beginning, and then later with the Americans, and fought in the war, different things like that. In the Revolutionary War, George Washington literally begged them. And this is, so this where it's so much. So the Indian slave trade, I'm gonna break that down in another video, but just to give you some quick context of the Choctaw, and I'll show a map of the Choctaw territory, and this is all the way into the early 1800s. You have to understand, my grandpa's grandparents were born in the 1800s, right? My grandpa's grandparents, and my grandpa remembered his grandparents very vividly, and can tell very vivid stories of how they were and how, everything, right? So some of y'all have grandparents, your grandparents knows who their grandparents are, and 9 times out of 10 their grandparents, if they are, if your people is from America and you are copper colored, and if you don't remember what copper is, because they got us brainwashed, we don't even know what colors are anymore. This is copper, okay? This is copper. You look up the definition of American in the 1828 dictionary, Webster's Dictionary, it says copper-colored races of America, but now applied to the white people, basically. So that's just real quick, because I'm trying to get to the point. Now, he breaks down the caterpillar butterfly analogy, And basically he breaks down how Christianity started off as a butterfly and turned into a caterpillar. It's a reverse butterfly, right? It started off as a butterfly and then it turned into a caterpillar, a disgusting, horrible looking creature, because of the Roman Catholic Empire and their Hittite kingdom habits, right? The Roman Catholic Empire, they were largely hating on the Christians when the Christians first began. They were killing them, doing all kinds of things, but a certain emperor decided, you know what, I'm going to use Christianity and the Catholic Church to conquer the world. Okay, and so he's going to break down how they did this. So he said the churches were filled with prophets/mediums. And this is, if anybody talks about how the Bible was created, well, I remember asking people all the time, they say, oh, the Bible comes from holy men inspired by God, or who was speaking to God. Okay, prophets/mediums who delivered the teachings of the ascended masters who reside in the highest realms of the spirit world. However, it's a part that a lot of people try to dismiss or don't want to believe because they've been brainwashed that the Bible is unerring, and they use the Bible as a false idol and believe that it is their God. However, in 325 AD, at the Council of Nicaea, Christianity veered off this path of enlightenment. It went into its cocoon as the Roman Empire Constantine declared Christianity the imperial religion. Okay, you can do this research on your own, but this is the research as well. Later, in 379 AD, Emperor Theodosius decreed the Catholic Church would be the only tolerated religion of the Roman Empire. This marked the Catholic Church's emergence from its cocoon when it became the most ruthless organization that this world has ever known. Christianity single-handedly extinguished the lamp of knowledge and truth, plunging and dooming the whole world into millenniums of darkness, ignorance, and superstition. And when they say the whole world, what they mean is the whole European world. Because again, there was another world on the other side of the seas that was not moving like this. Christianity, okay, yeah, I just read that. To achieve the priest-made goal of perpetuating an exorbitant lifestyle, the theologians designed and instituted Christian dogmas which enslaved the people by keeping them in ignorance. Augustine, who is from Algeria, Africa, was one of the foremost designers of these new enslaving dogmas. These Christian theologians learned their lessons well from the Jewish priests, who had the Hebrews bring them animal sacrifices to absolve sins. Okay, we all have heard of these animal sacrifices, and these same Christians try to talk down on other pagan religions, which basically just means not Christian religions, for having animal sacrifices. Meanwhile, they got animal sacrifices all through the Bible. But they just, the Old Testament don't count unless you're talking about gay people. Then it count. The Christian priests refined the rules, commanding the people to constantly bring the church money in order to have their sins forgiven, right? So at first it was animal sacrifices because they were living through like trade. It wasn't like money. It wasn't like dollar bills. It was like, okay, you give me food. You live off of food. Last time you spend your money on food and shelter. They already had the shelter, had them to build the shelter for God that they only could live in, and then constantly giving them food that they would hunt. So basically they were getting free labor, having them hunt for food to give it to them. And really this slave driving and slave mentality started off in patriarchal religions. It wasn't just out of nowhere. Once they mastered how to do this and say, God wants you to do this for me for free, then it continued through government, then it became church and state. And a lot of the patriarch, not just Christian, but the religion is Islam, and the Moors. So these people claiming they're Moors, well, they were a phallic worshiping religion as well, and they were a slave owning patriarchal religion as well. So this applies to them, the Jewish people, Arabs, a lot of them who became phallic worshiping people. So this cash flow brought the priest the best food, clothes, and many other luxuries. The priest convinced the unsuspecting people that they were God's representatives on earth, being directly chosen by God Almighty. Therefore, a priest must dress in a grand manner in truly magnificent and ornate robes made out of the most expensive fabrics embroidered with golden threads. And I want you to remember this. Because it's going to come up later. The all-powerful God deserves to live in a magnificent house. Therefore, the priests build majestic cathedrals, often with altars of pure gold, all financed by the impoverished, hard-working people. The priests did not worry if the people had enough money to put food on their tables. They must sacrifice their money to the church as Jesus had sacrificed his life. Okay, Christian theologians devised the most intricate, well-laid plans and figured out ways to cover their tracks. And then I'll skip. In the second half of the 4th century, certain theologians who later were labeled as saints and the Pope developed a truly malevolent conspiracy, which I call the Christian agenda. They decided it would be, in your terms, politically incorrect to attack the prophets/mediums who were God's spokesman. And I also forgot to mention this with the council's decision, which was I kind of alluded to, where the women started to come back in the form of men with female souls, right? Those would be considered homosexuals. This is what they're talking about, right? They're not even talking about the actual act of doing it, but they realized that there was a commonality when these female souls would come through in male bodies and they would still be attracted to male men, right? And they would be together. Now, that wasn't even actually a problem, but what became a problem is that they noticed that these people were more feminine. And the biggest problem was that these men with female souls had the mediumship abilities as women, which means they would start exposing these priests because they could channel higher vibrational spirits and say, oh, this is wrong. What the hell are y'all doing? These are babies. You ain't, God is not in your motherfucking ball sack. So they, oh no, what's going on, right? So they had to suppress or figure out what's going on. And if they couldn't suppress them, they would bribe them to use their spiritual abilities only for the other men, because they were phallus worshiping, right? They allowed them to live under the condition that they were to use their gifts in the church, and for the priests ultimately, and not for the people and for the spirit realm. So then it says that a lot of the males later down, because the Hittite kingdom was before Christianity, right? This is like preceding Christianity. And so with the Roman Catholic Church, they had a lot of the same priest habits as the Hittite kingdom, right? So when they adopted Christianity, they started using the same tactics to shut up women and female prophets, prophetesses, and also the prophets, who were largely gay men, right? Or men with female souls, because they say the female charge, the feminine charge, is what makes women a better channel for spirit energy. So it became a safe haven once they really started implementing these things and started killing everybody off, right? It became a safe haven for these people to be priests, right? To become priests in the church. So they use them, just like how they'll go and talk crazy about Indians or whatever in Europe, but at the same time, using the indigenous people, right? And pitting one against the other. This is a part of this patriarchal system of control, right? But it says, The reason your world is in a very chaotic state is due to the many religions on the planet which are really into mind control. Okay? It says, it is staggering that 12,000 religions use mind control to create a barrier between the truth and the untruth, between the world of spirit and the world of the physical. Mediumship is the only means of communication between these two worlds. Theology, it says, there is no such thing as an old man sitting on a gold throne in the upper regions of space controlling your world. There is no such thing as an evil entity sitting in the lower regions controlling any part of your world. Theologians created all this as mind control to make the masses of people afraid to disobey their orders. But this is just to give you a good idea in the lens. Because when I do history, when I study about religion and stuff like that, I like to apply it to what's going on with me and what's going on now in the world, instead of just making it seem like, oh, that's a nice, cool story. No, let's break some things down. It says, the Choctaws like war and are good strategists. They never stand firm and fight. They move about and courageously harass their enemy. When they engage in hand-to-hand fighting, they remain quite cool. Some of the women love their husbands so much that they follow them into battle. They remain at their sides, carry quivers full of arrows, and encourage their husbands by crying to them not to fear the enemy and to die like real men. The Choctaws are very superstitious. When they go off to battle, they consult their Manitou, which is carried by the chief. They always place it in the direction in which they intend to march against the enemy and post guards around it. They revere it to such an extent that they will not eat until the chief has offered it the first share of food. As long as they are at war, the chief is obeyed without question, but once they have returned, his prestige depends on how liberal he is with his possessions. This is very important. It is customary among them for the chief of a war party to distribute the booty among his warriors and among the relatives of those who were killed in battle, to dry their tears, as they say. The chief keeps nothing for himself except the honor of being the defender of the nation. So this is to show you that there are different kinds of conditioning of men and different kinds of conditioning of women. Can you imagine, and it's going to talk about this in this, if the women were treated this way in these kingdoms and with these religions and different things like that, can you imagine them going to war with their men and talking about, yeah, baby, kill his ass, don't let her, blah, be a real man? Can you imagine them women doing that? Hell no, you ain't gonna get that type of respect because you don't deserve it. You don't reciprocate that type of respect. You don't have that kind of leadership. This is a different kind of leadership. It says the chief, right, when he goes to war and he's snatching up all this stuff, he's snatching it for the community. Right, and it's going to break down how this is in a matriarchal society, because a lot of people, they think a matriarchal society is where a woman is the chief or a woman is the president. And it's not about that. It's more egalitarian, where it's more community based. It's about the community. It's not about one man who can brainwash everybody else to obey him for no good reason, that nothing benefits the individual at all. Right? So, the selfishness which causes so much crime in the old world, okay, is unknown among the people of the new. The Cuban Indians had every right to say that the true God of the Spaniards was gold, and that it was best to give it to them in order to have peace. Did it not break down the Christian agenda? Because these Spaniards were later Christians, brainwashed by this dogma created generations and generations before of phallus worshiping, where it's about sex and gold. It doesn't matter how young the child is, it's about sex and gold, right? It doesn't matter what they will trade the human in for some gold, right? They will snatch up somebody's child for some sex. It doesn't matter. When you're not grounded in the feminine energy, right? When you shut up all the feminine energy in the men and in the women, okay, it's out of control. Okay? It says, you never see in America among, and I'll read that one more time. The Cuban Indians had every right to say that the true God of the Spaniards was gold, and that it was best to give it to them in order to have peace. You never see in America among these people we call savages anyone barbaric enough to kill his brothers in cold blood or to bear false witness against them in order to gain their possessions, like they were doing, like they were trained by this evil empire to do. Which also is in the Bible. It's in the 10 Commandments. They're not following the basic 10 Commandments. Okay? They're not, thou shalt not bear false witness. That's in the 10 Commandments against your neighbor. Intrigue for the purpose of being, intrigue for the purpose of becoming rich through inhumane means is unknown. There are no women who poison their husbands, as in Europe, so that they can marry again. There are no women so lascivious and brazen that they would call their husbands impotent in public as do European women. Because why? They know that the men will take them out at any moment, right? So where would the respect come from in these times? A chief's wife would not act like that Italian princess who had her husband strangled because they could not satisfy her brutal passion. Oh, shit. There are no girls here who destroy their children in order to make their husbands think they are chaste. The Indian girls are horrified by Christian women who do such things. But why? Why? Okay, why are the Christian women doing such things? I told you what the Hittite men were doing to the children, to the female girls who claimed that they didn't have souls. So you keep speaking that into generations and generations of women to the point where they become soulless. Even if they of course they have a soul, but they become soulless, and you treat them like they have no soul. So then they gonna move like they ain't got no damn soul. Okay? So, but why are the Indian girls horrified by the Christian women? Because the Indian women, they know they have a soul, and they're treated like they have a soul in their tribes. Right? And I'm not saying, when I say this, Christian women, I'm realizing, I'm very aware that we are not in the world that these indigenous people were in the 1700s, where people that look like me are not Christians or don't have these beliefs that have been put onto them in the past 200 to 300 years, because it hasn't been that long. Okay, this is 300 years ago, where he was exploring and observing, not where he was living there, not where they were settled. This is where he was exploring. You have to remember they tried to put the slave narrative starting when the Europeans first landed, right? Not in the Southeast, not even in North America, but when they first landed in any of the Americas, they weren't even settled. They barely were populated. Okay? Okay. It says they point out that even the wildest beasts in the woods care for their young. Yeah, the wildest, but of course, again, this is a Christian man talking. So he talking down, this is the same mindset of these men who talking about, oh, I'm gonna go overseas because the women don't treat us like that in these other countries. Okay, well the men ain't treating, how you know the men, it's because the men are not treating them the way y'all treat women over here for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So he's saying, oh yeah, the Indian women don't do this. It's the same thing. That's why I like to connect the past, because when it repeats, it's repeating. Why? Because the women were treated with respect and they treated well. And then over hundreds of years now, these same people who were Choctaw Indians and Choctaw chiefs and had honor and valor and respect for their women, they are moving like this man talking. Okay, they're God-fearing Christian men who believe women should not be speaking and all this other stuff. If the chief of a band of Choctaws does not succeed in a battle he has undertaken, he loses prestige. No one has any further confidence in his leadership, and he is reduced in rank to a mere warrior. I thought this was fire. Why? Because you being a chief is based on your ability to lead. It's based on your leadership skills. It's not based on you coming from a long line of chiefs. It's not based on your genealogy like a lot of kingdoms and overseas are based on, right? It's based on, okay, are you useful? Are you winning? Are you doing what you say you're going to do, or are you not? Okay, well then we're losing confidence in your ability. So maybe somebody else needs to be a chief now. That's matriarchal society. We may, however, admire the diversity of opinions among the different nations. It is not considered shameful if a member of these warlike people does not stand his ground in battle. Such desertion is attributed to a bad dream. If the chief of a big war party tells his people that he has dreamed that the losses will be heavy, they turn around and go back to their village. After making medicine, as they do on all occasions, they set out again. If they meet the enemy and kill 5 or 6 of their number, they go back home as happy as though they had conquered a great empire. Okay, why is there a difference? It's about to break down what's the difference, right? Why are they not like celebrating killing 100,000 people, right? Why are they not celebrating, if they say, you know what, I had a dream that we about to get our ass killed, right? The people in the society are like, okay, well, shit, we ain't going. We're not going. Okay, what's the difference? A chief who won a victory involving a great loss of men would be very badly received by his people. I'm gonna keep reading because I'm gonna say, make the point after. They consider absolutely worthless a victory brought with the blood of their friends and their relatives. Therefore, the chiefs are very careful to spare their warriors and to attack the enemy only when assured of victory, either because of superior numbers or advantageous battle positions. Since the adversary uses the same strategy and knows just as well as anyone else how to avoid the trap set for him, the shrewder of the two contenders will win. The shrewder of the two contenders. Okay, what is that? Why is that the case, right? Women, and he's not gonna point out how women impact this and the love for the women and the children impact this, right? Women have power in the society. Like he said, the women love their husbands so much they would go to war and be yelling at him, bitch, you better, well, they're not gonna say that, but you better not quit, you better get on his ass, da, 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 da. Right? They did not view that as being too masculine. If you gonna die like a man, don't be no da, 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 da. You chose to come out this war, you gonna win. Okay, now I just got chills saying that. I don't even know. Why is that important? Why is that powerful? Why is it where it's not about killing up everybody? Because they don't want their people to be killed, and they still have compassion. They understand that war may be necessary, right? But we don't want to lose our people. We don't want to lose our family. We don't feel any honor in losing 100 soldiers. There's no honor. Also, they don't feel honor in killing 100 soldiers to get physical possessions and power moves. It's not worth it to us, right? Why? They were grounded in the feminine energy. Same thing with the intuition. Oh, I had a bad dream. The whole community respects the spirit realm. That's why. And the feminine energy who challenge that spiritual realm. Because of this, the Indians hide in the woods during the day and travel only at night. If they are not discovered, they attack at daybreak. Since they usually stay in covered terrain, the warrior in the lead sometimes holds a thick bush in front of him as camouflage. They walk in single file, and the last man covers their tracks. Okay. The things which betray them most often to their enemies are the smoke. And it talks about how skillful they're able to observe know how far somebody is based on the smoke, and also how far somebody is based on their footprints and different things like that. They said it's almost a miracle to the Europeans that they're able to know how far, and that they're that skillful in battle and in war to be able to finesse the situation and know what's going on, know what's coming. It says a warrior wears as a trophy the scalp of an enemy killed by, well, let me read this. The art of war among them, as you see, consists of vigilance and the ability to avoid surprise attacks and to catch the enemy off balance, in addition to the patience and the stamina required to withstand hunger, thirst, the elements, and the inescapable hardship of battle. A warrior wears as a trophy the scalp of an enemy killed in battle. He commemorates the event by having a mark tattooed on his body, and then goes into a month's mourning for his victim. Okay, just like how these people know our history, right? So that little teardrop on the face. Okay, but this is the other thing. It says, then goes into a month's mourning for his victim. They mourn for the victim that they just defeated. They have respect even for the people who they defeated. During that time, he is not permitted to comb his hair, and if his head itches, he scratches himself with a little stick which is tied to his wrist for that purpose. It says the Choctaws are very dirty since they live for the most part quite far from rivers. Okay, I'm just telling you, I'm not omitting nothing. They have no religion. Okay, this is where it gets very, very interesting. They take things as they come with no concern for the future, yet they believe that the soul is immortal. They revere their dead, which they do not bury. And then it goes in to talk about how their mourning ceremonies and different things like that. It says, during all of these laborious ceremonies, a mournful silence is maintained. There's no singing or dancing, and everyone goes off weeping. In the early part of November, they have an important holiday called the Feast of the Dead, or the Feast of Souls. Each family gathers at the cemetery and weeps as it visits the boxes containing the bones of its ancestors after leaving the cemetery. The Indians indulge in a great feast. It is to the Americans' credit that the love they show their relatives, so rare among Europeans, is worthy of imitation. So basically, they said, the Americans, and remember, Americans were considered copper-colored people in those times, all the way up to 1828 dictionary. Okay. It says the examples of this feeling which I have mentioned surpass those of antiquity. This love which the Indians have for each other makes them humane enough to help the sick and the ailing. This sincere love can be seen in the care they give their dying relatives and friends, and in the tears that are shed when their dear ones have departed. So they believe that the soul is immortal, just like they break down in this book. They believe in reincarnation. I have a whole book about that. I'm going to talk about that more. And the early Christians believed in reincarnation as well, but they started to omit those stories out of the Bible. Why? Because it did not fit the Christian agenda that would make them all this money, right? People cared about their parents, their relatives, right? That is not important in the Christian agenda. Why? Because it's about money and sex, right? They don't say the sex part, but it ultimately is, because they were manipulating who could have sex with who and why. And a lot of times these priests would be doing things with children. The Indians generally revere their medicine men. This is very important. This is very important when you read back to back what is about to happen, okay? The Indians generally revere their medicine men or seers, okay, which is also women, true charlatans, okay, who take advantage of the stupid people and live comfortably at their expense. So the medicine men were basically the prophets of the indigenous. So let's see why he thinks they're stupid, okay? These medicine men, who have a great deal of authority, are asked for advice and are consulted on every occasion like oracles or prophets. When a Choctaw is sick, he gives all that he owns to be cured. If, however, the patient dies, his relatives blame it on the medicine and not on the sick man's condition. So they're held accountable for their medicine, and they're held accountable for their advice, unlike the priests. Okay, the priests could say, well, God wanted them to die right now. Or anything. They always got an excuse. They could literally take somebody in their own tribe or their own community and blame and say God did it. Right? Nobody is holding these priests accountable because they brainwashed them to not hold them accountable. But in the Choctaw, they hold them accountable to all the advice that they give them. So it is to their detriment to not give them the right advice. Very opposite. They can kill the medicine man if they want to, but this rarely happens since he usually has a good excuse ready. And that's what the medicine men are familiar with several plants which are excellent for curing the common diseases of this country. And so in their religion, right, in these Christian religion, there is nothing a priest can do that would allow you to take them out unless the priest called for them to be taken out. Nothing an everyday person can ever say or do. It don't matter if they mess with their children, which it was a part of the laws, basically. Right, it was a part of the conditioning. That is the baptism, okay? And I'm not saying this is it's largely what Christians were doing, but this is what the Hittite kingdom literally had written in law to do, okay? But basically, they would do it in different ways. Like, okay, marriage can start at 3 to 4 years old, okay? Or marriage can start at 12, and all this, so they can marry off 3-year-olds. Okay. So the medicine men are familiar with several plants which are excellent for curing the common diseases of this country. They have a sure cure for the bite of the rattlesnake and of other venomous animals. When an Indian is wounded with a bullet or an arrow, the medicine man first sucks the wound and then spits out the blood. In France, this is called curing through secretion. In their dressings, they do not use lint or compresses. Instead, to make the wound suppurate, they blow into it powder made of a root. Another root powder is used to dry and heal the wound, and still other roots are used in a solution with which the wound is bathed to help prevent gangrene. Okay, it says, when the Indians return tired and worn out from battle or from hunting, they take sweet baths in steam cabinets in which are boiled all sorts of medicinal and sweet-smelling herbs. Now, he just said that they were dirty. And if you understand how the Black Plague was taking these people out at around the same time in Europe because they didn't know how to take no bath. Because they didn't listen to women at all. Women had no voice at all, right? And then also, they were on witch hunts, and they believed that cats were connected to witchcraft. So they killed up all the cats, okay? But the cats were eating and killing rats. So then they had an over influx. This is what they don't talk about. They had an over influx of rats, and the rats was causing diseases in people. Why? Because the people wasn't taking no baths, and they had a bunch of rats. So there was dying. That's what a lot of the Black Plague had to do with this religious phallus worshiping nonsense, because they were not listening to the women who usually carry the information for medicinal practices and cleanliness. You hear this now, these men talking about, oh, I don't wash my ass because I don't want to be gay. You ever hear a woman say, I don't want to wash my ass because I don't want to be gay? Women are just, come on, we need we need the grounding of the woman. Okay? I would never understand that one. And wonder why they have what is that called? The cancer, some kind of cancer that comes from the rectum, and also the prostate cancer. Okay, that's in your butt. That's in your booty hole, men's booty hole. I'm pretty sure the prostate is up in there. Okay, all them years to not wash your ass and having all this energy for your asshole, like it's brainwashing and conditioning, man. And repressed sexuality. We're gonna go into it. We're gonna continue. And they go into a lot of different herbs and things that they talked about how to get rid of gout, kidney stones, and other diseases to which we are subject in Europe and are unknown among the Indians. Right? Because why? He said, and then remember how this man described. Let me go back to how this man described these medicine men, right? Let me see. What did he say? The Indians generally revere their medicine men or seers, true charlatans who take advantage of the stupid people and live comfortably at their expense. That's what see how they project? See how they project? Now this is what he said about people that is curing them of diseases that in Europe, supposed to be the civilized cultures, have not figured out how to cure. Okay. They don't even know of the diseases. It says gout. Wait, let me read the vapor filled with the essence and salts of these herbs enters the patient's body through his pores and his nose and restores his strength. This is after they go into battle and all this other stuff. This remedy also eases pain and causes it to disappear. Gout, kidney stones, and other diseases to which we are subject in Europe are unknown among the Indians. This may in part be due to frequent exercise. Okay, so of course he's not going to point it to the medicine men who are helping to heal these people, who he calling as charlatans, because he's brainwashed. There are no paunches, as in Holland, or godders, as in Piedmont. I don't know what that is. The Choctaws believe in the existence of sorcerers and witches. When they think that they have discovered one, they bash in his head without any kind of trial. Okay, so these European people, they would probably call them witches, the medicine men, witches, and sorcerers. Like he tried to call him a charlatan, right? And that's what they later ended up starting to do to take out the medicine men and medicine women. Okay, but clearly there's a distinction between a medicine man and a seer and a sorcerer and a witch. Okay, when they think that they have discovered one, they bash in his head without any kind of trial. They take the spiritual realm very seriously. It's just that they don't need a religion to do so. I knew a member of this tribe who had been baptized a short time before because he and his comrades had had a poor hunting season. He thought he was bewitched. This new Christian went immediately to see Father Lefebvre, the Jesuit who had converted him. Listen very closely. And told him that his medicine was worthless. Since he had received it, he had not caught any deer or roebucks. He asked the priest if he would be kind enough to remove his medicine. Okay? So they had a different... this goes into so many things. Okay? In order to avoid the Indians' resentment, the Jesuit pretended to debaptize him. Sometime afterward, the debaptized Indian, through skill or luck, killed a roebuck and was happily convinced that he was no longer bewitched. Okay, so the way they saw medicine is, if it ain't working, bitch, remove it. Ain't that logical? Doesn't that make sense? Right? And the way Europeans till this day, the medical industry that we're in, is really based in religious dogma. To me, I see a lot of it as witchcraft. Okay, actual witchcraft, not medicine men, not shaman and all this. It's witchcraft. Okay, because the intent a lot of times from the higher up, it's not good, right? It is to eliminate, all right, and to control and to profit. But of course, he is projecting that on them. He said, debaptize me, bitch. Because this shit ain't working. That's how the energy should be. When you, like, back in the day, when they were listening to real prophets and real medium, real people that are centered in the higher realms, they expected to see progress. They expected to see, when I'm giving you an offering, if I'm giving you money, if I'm paying you for a service, I should receive something back. These people say you expected to receive back is the devil. That's the devil coming in you, making you selfish. Meanwhile, they roll around in helicopters and mansions and all this other stuff because they are men of God. Crazy how different. And they calling these people savages, barbarians, stupid. Talking about this is crazy. The people in the nation are generally of a brutal and coarse nature. You can talk to them as much as you want about the mysteries of our religion. They always reply that all of that is beyond their comprehension. They are morally quite perverted, and most of them are addicted to sodomy. You see how it goes? How it goes? It talks about the mediumship, basically. It talks about the medicine men. It talks about the prophets. Okay. Then it goes into, they are brutal and coarse because they feel like their religion is bullshit. It's some BS. And then right after that, it says, they are morally quite perverted, and most of them are addicted to sodomy. So most of them are gay. Most of them have same-sex relationships or relations. It says most of them. It doesn't say the minority. It says most of them. These corrupt men who have long hair, right, and wear short skirts like women are held in great contempt. Now they talking about them wearing short skirts like women. Meanwhile, their priests are wearing long dresses. Their priests at the same exact time is wearing long dresses that they got from the priestesses that they started to kill in the Salem witch trials. And well, not in the witch trials, but way before that, right? When the people of the society were in a matriarchal society and worship goddesses. Right? But they also, and I thought about this, right? And this about to get more interesting. I'm not gonna say more interesting, but just as interesting, right? To show the things that we have going on. It's been hundreds and hundreds of years. Nothing new. I thought about how would they be able to do birth control before condoms, before, you know, how were they able to control when people were born or how many people were born, right? Because they don't really talk about them having 10, 15, 20 unlimited children, right? So what was they doing? Okay, and what they was doing when they wanted to do without having children, this is in ancient times, they would just do same sex. It's real simple. Okay, and then after this, it goes into sports. It says the Choctaws are very fresh and alert. They play a game similar to our tennis and are very good at it. They invite the men of the neighboring villages to play and tease them by shouting insulting remarks at them. The men and the women gather dressed in their best clothing and spend the day dancing and singing. They even dance all night to the sound of drums and rattles. A game takes place on the day after a village lights its own special fire in the middle of a large field. The players agree upon a goal which is 60 steps away and which is marked by 2 large posts. Sounds like football. The aim is, and this is in the mid 1700s, okay? The aim is to get the ball between these posts. The game is finished as soon as one side has 16 points. I'll keep going. It says, an old man standing in the middle of the field throws up a deerskin ball. The players then run to try to catch the ball in their rackets. It is fun to watch them play naked, painted with all kinds of colors and with a wildcat's tail tied behind them. So they're basically playing a contact sport naked. Doesn't that sound like, what's this? Naked basketball? Y'all heard about the naked basketball with Diddy and Jamie Foxx. These elites, they know about this history. Now people, oh, that's a satanic ritual, blah. Everything that is indigenous to us is satanic. They want to make all of it satanic. That's what you also have to realize. Even in modern times, even on YouTube and different things, they're going to make everything satanic. Okay? Now, they up here playing naked football. And right before that, he said that they are addicted to sodomy. Okay, and this is interesting too. It says the feathers attached to their arms. So basically, what they wear, and if you think about the football uniform, they're damn near the cloth is so tight, right, on their body. Before it just what do we need this stupid ass cloth for, right? And it said they would often dislocate their shoulders. So then they started having the pads. That's all. They just added pads, right? So they don't get injured, so they don't injure their moneymaker, right? So we've been doing this. We've been doing these sports for a long time ago. So basically, they painted themselves, and instead of the paint, now they just have clothes with different colors, right? Now, instead of the feather, the tail, whatever, they might have a towel or something. It's the same. They know that we have incarnated several times, and this is very important also. Notice how these particular sports like basketball, football, the best in the world is in America. The best in the world are copper-colored Americans at these sports. Why? Not just because, oh, we have superior genetics, blah, blah, blah. We've been doing this in this area of the world since ancient times, since they first came here. They observed us already doing these sports, okay, and then they made it into an institution. And when it moved from a matriarchal society where really you just have your garden, you have all the food you need to eat right there where you're at, and you don't have to work and slave for anybody or anything, and you just live, you're free, you have fun, you're dancing around, you're having a lot of sex, okay? And these Christian people, they're like, oh, they're perverted, they're sodomitic, they're, blah, 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 the women are blah, 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 right? It was free, and they largely didn't have these types of diseases either, because they didn't have nobody injecting them with the diseases with their false medicine and their false religions. Very interesting stuff. Okay. The players push and throw each other down. Anyone who is skillful enough to get the ball past it on to a teammate, and his opponents try to get it away from him. Both teams play with such ardor that shoulders are often dislocated in the fray. The players never become angry, and the old men who act as referees remind them that they are playing for sport and not for blood. And also, I've read that they formed a lot of these sports so that the men could get this energy off them, right? The aggressive energy off them without actually going to war and killing people. So in different areas, they would have courts to play sports. And they would often go and play sports so they can act out warfare without actually killing each other. It's important for us to know our nature, our history. There is a great deal of gambling. Even the women bet among themselves. When the men's games is finished, the women get together to play to avenge their husband's losses. Okay, so they had women's sports and men's sports. Their rackets are different from those that the men use in that they are bent. The women, who are very good at this game, run swiftly and push each other around just as the men do. They are dressed exactly like the men, bucket naked, but it said, and have the paint and all this other stuff, but with a little more modesty. They put red paint on their cheeks only and apply vermilion instead of powder on their head, on their hair. Okay, but this basically still ass naked. After having played hard all day long, everyone goes home in glory and in shame. There is no bitterness, as each one promises to play another day when the best man will win. This is how the Indians practice running. They are so swift that I have seen some of them run as fast as deer. Okay, and this is a lot. It's getting long, but this is just very interesting. I'm going to continue on talking about this because then it goes into children and pregnancy. I think I've covered enough in this video. And so, like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see y'all in the next video.